Good evening, everyone. Good to see ya. Great to have you with us tonight. Friday night, it's lockdown, so that means there's nothing to do because you're locked down. So you're stuck in the house, and it's particularly windy night tonight.
It is quite windy, yeah.
And hello to everybody listening on the Spotify as well. Is that what's called, the Spotify?
Yeah, Spotify.
And also, do we have other listening
Apple
platforms?
Podcasts is the other
Apple
one.
Podcasts.
But I'm a Spotify fan, so. Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah. It's just
anyway, so it's great to have you with us. Go and get a cup of tea, go and get a cup of coffee, or if you're like me, really push the boat out, get a cup of cocoa.
Ooh.
Every night, 7 o'clock, it's my guilty pleasure. It's not even guilty. And it's sugar-free as well. So anyway, good to have you with us tonight. We're talking all things relationships. Mm-hmm. So hold on to your seats for the next few minutes. We're going to be just doing some real talk, talking about relationships. How do you manage them? How do you stay accountable? We're going to talk about dating. We're going to talk about all that stuff. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce the guys who are here in the panel tonight. Starting over here, we've got Angie.
Hey.
Angie's amazing. And Erin.
Hey.
You guys are housemates, aren't you?
We are.
Part of our Leicester campus. And you live in a detached house?
We do live in a detached house.
You've got a conservatory.
Yes. Yep.
There you go. So that tells you everything you need to know about these people over here. Then also over here, we've got Pastor Joe. Joe's our Nottingham campus pastor, great guy. Been a part of our church community since day 2.
Day 2, yeah. Week 2, yeah.
And it's just great to have Joe with us tonight. So we're going to just have a chat with you, and I hope you really get something out of this tonight and enjoy it. And so let's talk about relationships. First of all, I think sometimes when it comes to talking about relationships in church, one of the challenges can be that we want to get things so right that we can almost imply, or it can almost be implied, it's wrong to have relationships. You shouldn't have relationships, that's worldly. God's will is not for you to have a relationship. But actually, no, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a relationship. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's an honorable thing. It's fine. So, but tonight we want to just do some real talk between how do you manage the tension of wanting a relationship and keeping God your focus.
That's good.
So maybe that's where we'll start. Actually, how do you do that? How do you you have a desire to have a relationship with somebody, but also as Christians, there is the challenge of keeping, we say keeping God number one in our lives and so on, etc. So, any thoughts on that? To start with you, Erin?
Yes. No. Yeah. I think, as you said, it is a tension to be managed.
Sure is.
And I feel like last week they touched on it as well. If you missed last week's FNC, go check it out on Spotify and YouTube as well. And I feel like remembering that God's got a purpose for your life, and God's purpose for your life is for you, and that doesn't change, when you get in a relationship, whether you're single. And I think it's not wrong, as you said, to want a relationship, but actually that doesn't define who you are. That doesn't define who God has called you to be and the plan that He has for your life.
I think it makes a big impact. If God's your focus, then that's going to determine how you engage in the relationship. It's going to determine the relationship, isn't it? Because if your vision is up there, and this is a really bad illustration, right? For the purpose of Spotify, it's left. And the person that you're really physically attracted to is turning right, and they're going to do. So the problem is that relationship is not really going to work because it's like a vision this way and a vision that. That's division, isn't it?
Oh,
huh? You ever thought about it like that?
I like that.
So it's like it's not really helpful. So I suppose that putting God at the center, putting God at the heart of everything. Is kind of important. It is important because that's going to really determine. Everything flows from that. And so you want to get that right. You anything to add to that?
No, absolutely. I like what you said there, Erin. I think part of the tension is perhaps a lot of people or I'm not going to say a lot of people, it's very easy for all of us to fall into this. You know, if you're single and maybe you've been single for a while and you've got that tension of wanting to be in a relationship, you can.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's a desire. Like God created that. You know, that's why He gave Adam Eve. You know, that we're meant to be in relationship. And so, you know, it's like when there's that tension, and maybe it's something you've been waiting on for a while. It's easy to kind of get sidetracked and become unhappy, perhaps. But the truth is, you can still be happy while she's single. It's all about finding something that gives you purpose and gives you drive. And
you know what I think happens with a lot of people? Sorry, were you finished?
No, that was me. Yeah,
I got a revelation. So I think what happens with a lot of people is, though, that they panic. They get to a certain stage, right? So you know, it's like you have a season where, Lord, I'm resting in you. I'm leaving this with you. And then you wake up at 3:00 one morning and you think, where's my husband? Or where's my wife? I thought I did it. And it's like, I think that a lot of times the reason, you know, I always say to people, hold your nerve. Hold your nerve.
Yeah.
You just got to hold your nerve. And that in a way is the very thing that you probably don't want to hear, because what you really want to hear is God. You know, you want to hear prophecy. The Lord is sending that person. They're coming around the corner now.
Right,
you know,
now.
and then you look at this Sunday, it's the wrong person. You think they're like 90 or whatever. So it's like kind of not the one. It's not the one. You know, not unless of course you're like 90-year-olds or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. So like I think that panicking is like you gotta I suppose you got to get some perspective in that.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
No, literally off the back of that, Pastor, I think that's such a good point. And I feel like I really do resonate with that, because being like, you know, single, like the panic has set in. I feel like as a, you know, as you said, you go through seasons where you're like, Lord, I trust you. This is my single season. I'm a thrive. And then like one day you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, Lord, why is it not happening? When is it happening? Who's it happening with? But it's so true, like the perspective that we have and how I guess we view relationships, and like touching on what Erin says, the priority and I think the value that we put in relationships kind of can help us manage the tension. Like I always think, like, you know, it's great to have a desire to want to be in a relationship, great to have a desire to want to be with someone, but it's not our be all and end all. It's not like the, you know, like it's not like like the whole achievement of our life. And I feel like it kind of ties into, I was thinking about this, kind of ties into what you were saying on Sunday, Pastor Roy, about courage. And you were talking about, you know, courage is not always about, you know, facing up to the fight, but learning like at times when to walk away. And I feel like sometimes to manage the tension of like wanting to be in a relationship but not over egging it is actually knowing when to walk away and knowing when to like leave it in God's hands and just to trust in God and have the courage to like be like, I'm just have to trust. I don't know when it's going to happen, but God, you're going to make it work some way or the other.
Yeah, I think that's really good, and it's. I guess there's an element of making sure, you know, making sure that singleness is not my identity. Singleness is not my identity. You know, I'm serving God and I'm getting on with it and I'm going to and singleness is not my, and I think when you come to that sort of conviction, I think it has to be a conviction actually.
Oh yeah.
That you know, I am a child of God. Like all the stuff you were just saying there, I'm going to get on, I'm going to serve God and so on and so on. So my identity is who I am in God. My identity is not I am a single person. That's not your identity any more than my identity is I am a married man.
Yeah.
I mean that's not my, you know.
It's true.
You know, I love my wife, but my identity is I'm a child of God. My wife is listening right now, is thinking, what is he going to say right now? Anyway, let me ask a practical question. How do men are from Mars and women are from Venus? Is that right? Is that what the book says?
I think
That is a scientifically proven saying.
I've never read the book, but I just love the title. I think the title's brilliant. It's never a truer title has been spoken in the history of book titles. Isn't it? So let's get some perspective. What do men look for in relationships, and what do women look for in relationships, and then how do you shape that by your spirituality? Right, I'm out.
Wow.
I'm answering on behalf of the men or
Yes,
the women?
I mean, yeah.
You're talking on behalf of the men. Yeah.
No
So what, you know,
Wow.
because, and I think this is an important little part of the conversation because sometimes, you know, men can assume that women are looking for the same things that men are looking for, but they're not, because women are looking for different things.
I can hear Noel, our tech guy, laughing because he's like, Joe's really in it now.
You're the spokesman of the man.
Excited.
Go on.
What
so come on.
responsibility?
Identify.
Don't say 5 things because I don't know if I have up to 5 things.
It's lost, isn't it?
Well, that's a big challenge, obviously. Well, what are men looking for? I think men are definitely, there's definitely a physical aspect to it. I feel like, as a guy, you have to be attracted to, to the, physically to the person that you want to be in a relationship with. But also, I don't think a lot of men will probably voice this, but as someone who's in a relationship, it's something that I've come to realize that I really wanted, but I probably didn't know it so much at the time.
Yeah, but you were young and foolish. Now you've grown older and you've matured.
Yeah.
I think
men mature later than men.
I think, absolutely. I think that's true. I think women mature much more quickly than men, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Men are like boys up until about 30.
35.
35, but that's
I'm
a good
still trying
point.
to get
So, and that does. There's a dynamic there, isn't there? If there is a sort of a, we're talking in general terms. I mean, obviously, and talking in a little bit tongue in cheek as well. But I think there's an element to that. So
absolutely,
continue.
yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that men absolutely need is, again, carrying on with that thought, is someone who is supportive of them and able to really challenge them to be great, because it can be, I think, because of the kind of perhaps like the social construct of what a man should be, and that's a whole different topic on its own. Sometimes men can find themselves in this space of probably feeling a bit of pressure to compare to other men, when that's not, God's calling you to be like him, not like what the world calls a man to be. And so in those areas maybe where you feel inadequate as a guy, when you're in a healthy relationship, you find that the woman that you're with is really encouraging, really supportive, and really pushes you to be great. And I think that that's something that men look for but don't really know that they're looking for until they get into a good relationship, and then you're like, oh, that's really nice to have, because men aren't really the type we don't really, unless, the other thing is men build relationships with other men over time. It takes a while for a man to get deep with another guy. But I think probably women are a bit more easy to do that amongst themselves. So when you're in a good relationship, you find you're able to be a bit more vulnerable than perhaps you normally are. And so that's really helpful as well. That really helps you as a guy. So I think those are things that guys look for. But definitely, I think probably the main thing, and this is something that I've probably come to find, is that men are probably a bit more invested in the physical side of things than women are, in terms of when they look. I don't know, you can answer that, I don't know, but I think that's probably fair to say.
When a woman sees you, I tell you.
Not me, I'm taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. So help us. We're ignoramuses. What is a woman looking for in a relationship then? What's the deal?
Go on, Erin.
Yeah. Oh no.
And by the way, when you're answering this, you are going to help men to understand. So there's a lot of, help that you're going to give people here.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and I will answer the question, but I do feel like, and I know for me, maybe personally, and maybe, I don't know if Andy can relate, or the gals listening, but I feel like we maybe have our lists. And I feel like sometimes, and that's not a bad
lists.
thing. Like our lists of
it's called the list. Like sometimes
multiple lists.
Women have lists.
Like of non.
Every man in the Junction Church, there's a list.
No. But and obviously that's not a bad thing, and I think it's good to know what your non-negotiables are, and so that you don't settle for somebody that you don't want to be with. But I feel like maybe, I know for me, sometimes it can be easy to get caught up in the list and almost keep adding things.
Well, because the list is too idealistic, you mean? Because that's a good point, isn't it?
So I don't really know what would be on your list, but something that's maybe unattainable, or something that you've maybe made up in your head. And I'm talking from personal experience as well. I'm not trying to call out anybody, but I think maybe a healthy way is just it's another tension to manage, managing your expectations so that you're not just settling, but also managing your expectations so you're not disappointed.
Yeah,
and feel
I get that.
You're
That's and that's really, really helpful to hear that, because I suppose all of us have expectations, but you've got to manage those expectations as well. You've got to have some standards. Is that an old-fashioned word? Yeah. Standards. You've got to have standards, young people. But you got to have some non-negotiables. But then you got to have some negotiables as well.
True.
So if they snore, you think, well, I'll cope, or whatever. But if it's they're they're not walking in faith or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Then that's a chat. But that's really
Yeah.
interesting. What about yourself? Any perspective to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to go off what Pastor Joe was saying. I feel like for maybe women, what they kind of look for is someone like emotionally intelligent and like emotionally aware.
Yeah.
Which is
Tell you.
a really big plus. I feel like attraction is a big thing. Like we all, like, we can't lie and say, oh, we don't, it's all about personality. Because like, you know, to a certain degree, you know, you got to be
Yeah.
attracted to whoever. But I feel like being emotionally invested, being emotionally aware, being emotionally able to, and it's not easy, it doesn't come easy to all of us, especially even women at times as
Yeah.
well, but I feel like being able to communicate with your partner on that level is something
It's
that
true.
is really, I guess, attractive.
Well, I mean, I think you're right, because when let me tell you, when Lydia saw me, it was just, what a guy.
Really.
Wow.
I was lecturing, and she said, and then she heard me engage with people, and she thought, that's my guy.
Right there.
She knew in that
Honestly.
moment.
Honestly, so like,
Is she asking the questions? Was she like, I've got a question?
she tells a completely different story, but that's besides the point. But the physics, so, because guys, I think, sometimes think, we're the only ones who are looking for physical attraction. How important is that for a woman, though? Physical attraction.
I think it's important.
I think it plays a bigger role than maybe.
Yeah.
I think the difficult thing is that people don't often want to talk about it because you don't want to come across shallow.
Yeah,
You don't
right.
want to come across
Right. Yeah.
superficial.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's bad to want to be attracted to the
Yeah.
person
No,
you like,
of
you know,
course.
want to date. So I feel like physical attributes do play a big role.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I love it. Another one. Okay, so what about let's talk boundaries then. Oh, put the kids to bed.
Watershed.
So, you know, we're Christians, so I guess we got some convictions about, you know, making sure that we're faithful and, you know, doing things right, et cetera, et cetera. What about boundaries then in relationships? How do you manage? And listen, when I was dating Lydia, I found this flipping tough. You know, and she found it even more difficult because she was with this hunk of a guy. Angie, unbelievable. Joe, let's go to you. How do you?
I feel like we need Pastor Lydia to come on.
I know,
Honestly.
yeah.
Sorry, darling. Yeah, I'll be home in a minute.
Oh my God.
How do you manage the boundaries then? Because obviously you want to respect the person when you're dating. There's no guarantee. Well, you're still. I guess there's courtship. You're trying to work out, you know, where this is going. And as Christians, I think part of our deal is you want to respect that person.
Yeah.
You don't just want to make it like a lust thing and then
Yeah.
totally disrespect the person. That is why the Bible talks about that stuff. So, talk about boundaries. How does that work?
I think that's important. Absolutely, boundaries, and you've got to set them. It's the sort of thing that you've got to agree on beforehand. Like this is the line that we don't cross. And sometimes people are like, oh, what is the line? I think like if it's something that you're going to be asking yourself, is this too far? Then it's already too far. So
Yeah.
you know, especially because we're Christians, and you know we talked about earlier having Christ at the center of that relationship, because we're all, you know, that's the thing that kind of keeps us on the same path. Otherwise you're going left and she's going right. Then you've got to be thinking about that. And so the whole thing about boundaries don't just happen, they're created. And it's about staying strong on those and keeping them accountable.
And you know what? I feel like I'm interrupting you. I don't mean to.
Okay.
Sorry, continue.
Oh, no, you go.
You done? I forgot what I was going to say. I genuinely forget what I was going to say now. You see, you interrupted me as I was
You were
interrupting
saying
you.
boundaries were created.
They just happen, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing I was going to say. Yeah, I think that you don't leave the creating the boundaries until the relationship starts. I think they start before the relationship ever comes your way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I love about the guys in our church? And there's this thing going on, and Fraser Botham actually is the guy who sort of oversees this. And again, I can only talk from, you know, guys' perspective, but with all the temptations that are before guys, we're really strong in the Junction Church and trying to teach guys about respect, about, if you're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's really do this right. And so we have strong accountability. WhatsApp groups, if somebody's struggling with, lust or something like that, then they can ask for prayer, or they can get some help. And it's so brilliantly effective in the life of our church. And it's helped so many people. I know that, you're a part of all of that as well, and you'll identify with that. But so I think that's, boundaries start before even the relationship. You got to get that sort of really going.
Yeah, you almost have to have it. Well, not almost. You have to have a sense of boundaries whilst you're single before you even get into, because then that's what your principles are based off. It's sort of like, okay, these, like you're talking about your non-negotiables. There are some things that even before you get into the relationship have got to be non-negotiables.
But then I think when you're in a relationship and you got the hots for each other and you really love each other, and all that sort of whatever. But I think then accountability becomes even more important. So an accountability, it's a kind of a scary word in a way. Are you accountable? Like Christians love saying accountable. When a Christian says that, they sort of lower their eyes as accountable, as in a judgmental kind of way. But accountability is important, because accountability, you got some people around you, and when you are really struggling, and it's okay to, find a struggle in relationships. If there's physical attraction, of course, there's going to be struggles. There's, struggles in terms of lust and all that sort of thing. But accountability says, I'm gonna keep myself account. I'm gonna talk to people when I'm struggling. I'm going to talk to some people. I'm going to say, listen, I am really, really finding this season very, very difficult. Can you pray for me? Can you help me?
That's good.
I want to make sure that I just let you know. It's better to talk about it than not talk about it. Sin, let's talk the S word. Sin only has power over your life when it has a hiding place. So the one John thing, bring everything into the light. So you bring it into the light. It doesn't have a hiding place. It's only when sin can find a little hiding place, and then it becomes like your dirty little secret. It's there, nobody else knows it. Whereas accountability is open, honest, transparent, an open dialogue. I'm really finding this difficult. And then when you have so it's the relationship, but it's the relationships that you've got around you in your life. When you're struggling with that, to be able to have some people to talk to, that's why church matters. Because then you can talk to some people and really get some help with that stuff. Does anything to add to any of that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, going off Pastor Joe, what you were saying about the line and drawing the line, and I feel like something that I've maybe personally experienced, that I used to think boundaries was just like the line, and that was kind of it. But actually
a boring, bland line,
just the line there. But I feel like, sort of as I've grown up and stuff, I feel like boundaries is not trying to see how close you can get to the line, but actually it's asking and having maybe a different perspective of, is what I'm doing, is how I'm treating this person and what I'm doing in this relationship, is this honoring to God, is my relationship, or is this honoring to me, is this honoring to the other person, but ultimately is this honoring to God? And I feel like as well, maybe focusing on what can I gain instead of what am I missing out on, because maybe having that perspective of like maybe missing out on something in the now, but actually I'm going to gain something so much more later on in life.
The joy of missing out.
Joy of missing out. There you go. Jomo.
Jomo. That was week 2, I think that was.
And that's a really good point. That is such a good point, and it is important to have those boundaries in place. I mean, again, when you got the hots for somebody, it's like it's very challenging. It's very accountability is putting little things in place so that you can really protect limiting the amount of time, thinking about the time you meet, the context. I think it's always really healthy, and one of the best ways you can develop your relationship is to hang out with people. Now I know that's really tough in lockdown. I get it. That's really tough in lockdown at the moment, but we're gonna get through this thing, and then we're going to get back to some kind of normality again. Hopefully the vaccines will be effective, et cetera, et cetera. Did a great video on that, by the way. But so hanging out with people, I think having another couple, having some other people in your life that you can hang out with as a couple.
Yeah, it's true.
It's brilliant. It's the best. It's the best, because actually you got to find context where you get to know each other. If you're just spending all the time, I hate it when couples just spend all day, every day together. I'm bored looking at them. And they're so into each other that they forget that there's a world out there, a whole world out there. They're like, oh, you're cuddly. And you can do a bit of that every now and then, but all the time, give me a break. Give me the sick bag. Come on, people. I feel like I'm breaking boundaries here. Like this. I'm trying to keep Friday night conversation alive.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think that's important. Go and hang out with some people. Go, learn to be a great couple, not just when you're together, but to other people as well. Because that's all about purpose. That's all, we say that, I really encourage you, that if you're dating somebody in church, serve together. Like, come and do something to, put out the church together. Come and live for a cause bigger than yourselves together. If this is going to be the rest of your life, people say, well, we'll start doing that when we get married. We'll start doing that. Listen, you don't start now, you'll never do it.
Yeah, that's true.
This is part of purpose. This is part. So don't be so into each other that it's like you forget everybody else in your world. Yeah. That's accountability. That's it's getting along to life group. It's making sure that you are not exclusive. Exclusivity is just the worst. It's just the worst, and it's not cool anymore either.
No.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
If you're exclusive, right? I'm excluding you. Okay, I just said the thing that I'm doing. Anyway, am I rambling here?
Good.
So, boundary. I mean, listen. What we're doing here is we're just hitting on some things, and hopefully it'll encourage some people. So, let's talk dating then. Let's talk dating. Any good principles for dating then in the modern society, as they say?
Don't go to the cinema on the first date.
Yes,
that's a terrible idea.
That's a terrible idea because you're sitting there watching a movie, not talking, not engaging.
You sit there for 2 hours. You're like, cool. See you later. Like, what was the point?
Exactly. Let me tell you what I did to my wife. Pizza Hut.
Oh, there you go. Conversation over food.
Let me tell you, it was a big deal for me as well. We shared the dessert afterwards. And I was appalled because she ate most of the dessert as well. But I married her. So
that's when you know. That's when you know.
That's when you know you love somebody.
Exactly.
When the dessert is stolen and you say, I'm going to marry her. Honestly, really, really powerful stuff. Honestly, we're getting real and gritty here tonight.
I love it.
But dating, I guess that there is a pressure. I guess there's a pressure everywhere to, how do we pressure to look the part and to do what everybody else is doing? I guess when you're a student and then people are experimenting and sleeping around, and somehow that's culture, and somehow that's okay. And I think a lot of people do that stuff and they hate it. They absolutely hate it, and they do it because of peer pressure, because they don't want to be weird, right? As if you're not already weird. But I want to feel normal. So to be normal, you sleep with a bunch of people that you don't even like. So I'm sounding like an old guy now.
No,
it's
good.
But I tell you, I speak the truth.
I was going to say, Pastor, this is good.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, dating. So there's a peer pressure out there. But how do you resist that stuff? How do you do that? And you've been through the uni experience, so you get it. You get the pressures that are there. But how do we as Christians not just go along with that? How do you do that?
I feel like you kind of talk about it, Aaron, but I feel like it's like, I guess the value you put on other people, how you see another person, and like as you said, are you honoring towards them, or is the actions bringing you closer to God? Is it because I feel like it's hard maybe in like a Christian dating sense, because there's no, we kind of talked about this last week, there's no explicit thing in the Bible that says this is the way you date, this is everything you need to do, etc., etc. Yeah, there's like courtship and etc., like stuff like that, but I feel like that's kind of back in the day, maybe not to the
courtship. That's a very old-fashioned word.
I was going to say
courting.
Courting.
Relationships and courting.
That's before my time. But but I feel
it was cool when I was in my day. I tell you, courtships. 1940s.
where was I even going with my point?
We're talking about courtships.
You're talking about courtships,
I feel like it's hard, but I feel like an intentionality plays a big part into it, in the sense of what are you doing and why are you doing it. Asking those questions. Why? What is the purpose of me dating? Maybe am I dating because, as you said, is it peer pressure? Am I dating to fill a void in my life that potentially isn't going to be filled by what I'm going out and seeking in the world? Am I dating because I need validation? And I'm not just like saying this to call people out, because I feel like we've all been in positions where like we might have fallen into this trap. But I feel like sometimes we just got to, check our heart. And sometimes it starts with us, and we've got to think, what are we trying to gain, and what we're trying to put out, what we're trying to represent to other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. Before I get to the thought,
I'm not even looking at the comments.
Yeah, I said the thing about like not going to the cinema on the first date, and Moose has gone, but you need to know if you're watching TV that you won't be disturbed. So apparently it's a good. So it's like,
you need to know that you won't be disturbed.
You won't be disturbed if you're watching TV. It's a test anyway.
So that's on his list. I need to know what I'm watching.
That's number one on his list.
Nobody asking questions.
They can sit in silence for 2 hours.
Why did he do that? Well, I'm just trying to watch the show. I'm like that.
Honestly,
I'm not gonna lie. I'm like that.
That's true. When he's sitting and drinking his cocoa, I do not want to be. That is
a strong point.
Somebody write that down. Very good.
Take note.
Honestly, the man's got
Add that to your
wisdom.
list.
No, that's a strong point you make, Angie. I think as well, like when you're dating, there needs to be a level of maturity. I know it's a word that we used before, but maturity in the sense of you need to kind of understand what you're doing. Like you can't just frivolously just date. Like without any, I think as Christians as well, like I'm not saying put this massive expectation on it, because I think that your expectations change the longer you date. So like you don't go on a first date with someone thinking this could be my wife or this could be my husband. That's just the wrong expectation. Like you're getting to know each other first to see, am I vibing with this person? Yeah. As the relationship goes on, then you can start to build expectations. It's very unhelpful or unfair to someone else to kind of take the be all and end all expectation is the very first date. And that takes maturity. It's like, okay, because then maturity means that if it doesn't work out, then, it's not like there's then this huge animosity between you and stuff like that. It's like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, you move on. But that takes maturity as well, I feel. And so it's like going into like, if someone's in a season of life where they're dating, there needs to be a sense of maturity and understanding that the expectations are different at different points, I feel, of a relationship.
That's so good. And because I feel like when I was growing up, that when you were talking about like not going on your first day and expecting like that to be, you're going to meet the one, because I feel like growing up, like you're always taught like you should date to marry. And so that like when you're dating someone, like from jump, like that is marriage basically, like expect the ring next week. But I feel like not anymore. But I feel like it's true, like the maturity of expectations. And I guess in today, I don't know, it's difficult, because it's like how do you not have that expectation of not dating to marry, but then of at the same time not fall into like the worldly view of just dating around and dating, as you said, frivolously.
I don't know why I brought that word in.
It's the old-fashioned courtship. I mean, old-fashioned, but it is kind of, as good as courtship. You're getting to know each other. You're two people who are, you like each other. Hopefully you like each other. Well, that's why you're having dinner, You like each other, and we're just trying to work out, is there any go in this? Yeah. And I think that when you enter into it, you don't want to be frivolous. And you don't want to be like leading somebody on. I think that's really wrong. I think as Christians, we especially got to watch out for that, just leading somebody on, with no intention of whatever, pursuing it. But I like the attention. So that's driven by insecurity, isn't it? And that's an issue of the heart. That is a profound issue of the heart. But the whole point of a courtship, old-fashioned word, dating is, as Christians, is you want to, it's not jumping into bed like on the first night, second night. That's the Bible. It's not that the Bible's spoiling our fun by discouraging that. Is the Bible saying respect people? Come on, figure out if you really love each other. Whoever finds a partner finds a good thing. That's Proverbs. So I would, and the whole leading on thing as well. I think that that's something that all of us, men, women, we can all Christians can be guilty of that as well. Flirt to convert and all that sort of thing. Whatever.
Hashtag
have you heard that before? Flirt to convert.
I feel like that should be the title of next week's 70.
Oh yeah.
Flirt to convert, the whole teaching series.
whole
The
teaching
blessed life
series.
and then flirt to convert afterward. No, we're not trying to encourage people to do that.
No.
But that's a big one. That's a
It
big,
is.
that's really important to Christian.
Yeah.
Stop messing about. When people are just leading each other with no real intention of anything, it's just you like the attention. Stop it. Just stop it. And people know when they're kind of intentional about it as well. Just really respect people and Anyway, I feel like I'm telling people off.
Yeah, people are loving it.
No, it's good.
Loving that, yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about communication then. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So I do think generally men and women just talk totally cross purposes. Men. This is probably too general, but it is true to say that when a man will say, I went down to this shop and I got myself a piece of, a loaf of bread and went home again, boom. And then a woman will say, well, I went down to the shop and then I met, I saw us, and then I stopped at the shop window. Women, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think women are more probably emotionally intelligent, I would have thought, than men. Now, you made an interesting observation, and I think there's truth in that, which is that, well, again, too general, but a lot of the times men mature more slowly. They get better at conversation as time goes on.
Yeah.
But the communication thing, any thoughts on how communication, because it's not just about the physical attraction, it's not just about the dinner dates, it's what you could talk about and how does all that work? Any thoughts on that? Good communication in relationships?
Yeah, I think you got to be open. You got to talk about interest and stuff. Find stuff that I think you need to be able to do both. You need to be able to do really shallow, and you need to be able to do deep as well. And
Yeah,
if you
that's
can't
good.
cover the entire spectrum of conversation comfortably, now I'm not saying that that's going to happen
do
straight away
both
on the
those?
first day. Sorry, do I do both of those? Yeah. We chat about all kinds of.
What's your shallow?
We sometimes make up these silly plots.
What's your
where-
deep?
What's my what?
What's your deep?
Your deep
Deep?
conversations.
Your deep conversations.
The flip side.
The
You
flip.
shallow and
Oh,
deep.
right. I thought you said dip as in DIP, but deep. I was like, what's my dip? My deep, it's like future stuff, like purpose and all that kind of stuff. So like, we'll talk about that.
Right, okay, let's move on.
Pastor is not impressed.
I know.
I thought it would be something juicy and interesting. Deep.
The Atlantic Ocean.
But that's
It's quite deep.
But that's so the whole thing of shallow, deep. There comes a point, though, I guess, when you in the dating thing, when there comes a conversation when you have to be honest with each other and say, where's this going? How do we see this going? Managing expectations. How do you if you're not quite sure about somebody, you kind of like them, but you're not quite sure about somebody. How do you communicate that in a way that conveys, I'm interested, but I'm still trying to work this thing out? How does that work?
Don't look at me.
I think we're looking at you for the answers to that one.
I don't know the answer. No, when I saw Lydia, I just thought, right, I'll marry her. That was it. It was love at first sight on my part.
Should we call past Lydia?
Yeah.
That's such a good question.
It is a great question.
I think it's, and I'm not sure if this is the right answer, but I think maybe what needs to happen is if you're at that stage in a relationship, there's already hopefully an understanding between the two of you that you're really into each other. Like you actually really do like one another.
True.
And perhaps, maybe if one person seems more ready or that conversation comes up, then it needs an honest conversation. I feel like it needs an honest guilt. Like you shouldn't go in like feeling guilty or feeling like you're going to be have the conversation. You need to have the conversation. You need to talk about what it is and figure out, ask those questions. And a lot of times it's in the asking the questions that you find out what the real thing is going on. Maybe it's just like you're scared of doing something big. Maybe it seems like the next big step and maybe you're afraid of it, or maybe you're just not sure that that's the person, and you got to be honest about these things. But I feel like that's the real, that's communication. Like it's all nice and easy saying, oh yeah, talk about it deep and the shallow and
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Men are factual. What is it? Whereas women, I think women tend to be. Oh my word! I'm going to get myself into trouble here. Women are more nuanced
Yeah.
is the word.
Yeah.
And there is, part of the process that I know you're like me is you'll learn to read me and you'll understand me.
Yeah.
To this day, I'll go and I'll say, how are you, Lydia? And Lydia will say, I'm great. And then later on, I'll say, oh, it's good to know you're great. And she says, I'm not great, And I'll say, I know that now. We've got a great marriage. It's been...
I love it. I think it's sorry.
No, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna.
You've saved me.
No, I was just gonna say off the back of what Pastor Joe was saying. I feel like it's that whole conversation. It's like that the DTR, define the relationship. And sometimes maybe it can be a bit of a daunting thing, but I feel like in the long run, like if you don't figure out what page you're on, like how when are you going to go forward? How are you going to go forward? And I think that's a big part of communication is knowing where you stand with that other person. Like it ties into what you're saying, Pastor Roy. Are you being led on? Are you leading someone on intentionally or unintentionally? And so sometimes it's communication is good. Speaking about these things are good because you've got to be open, you've got to be honest. As you said, if you like this person, hopefully you are in an environment where you can share your heart, you can share what you're talking about without it feeling like it's embarrassing or like you have to guard yourself in that type of way.
Yeah. One of the once bitten, twice shy, they say, and there is a vulnerability when you enter. I guess that's what makes it so nerve-wracking. You emotionally invest. And sometimes the challenge is relationships go wrong. So in other words, one person doesn't feel the same way about another person. It can be very hurtful and very difficult and so on. Is there any, and it's very easy to sit and just talk about this, but when you're in the moment and you're going through it, it's really, really, really tough, isn't it? Any thoughts about how you can protect your heart in a relationship so that, when it does go wrong, there can be, a moving on, a forgiveness. Does that make any sense? How do you guard your heart? I think that's what I'm trying to get at in a relationship without being so protective that the person never gets in. There's got to be vulnerability, but at the same time, you do have to guard your heart, don't you?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I feel like it's a difficult one because it's especially when you're in a situation where you wanted something to work out and it's not worked out quite the way you thought it would be. As you said, it highlights that vulnerability, and I think a lot of us, we don't want to be like vulnerable. We don't want to feel exposed. We don't want to feel hurt, and we don't want to experience that again. But I feel like it's a case of acknowledging it and acknowledging that it happens, acknowledging that I am hurt. But at the same time, like this isn't going to be forever. This isn't gonna be like my whole life. I'm not going to be heartbroken my whole life. Yeah, in the moment it might feel like it, but actually knowing that after there's still something to come. I feel like what's the saying that we say? If it's not okay, it's not.
No, it will be good in the end, and if it's not
okay, then it's not the end.
Something like that.
Sorry, was that a message in tongues you just gave there? What was that again?
I'll repeat that again. We
I'm trying to process that. If it's not okay, it's fine, but it's all over the mountain and it's down the road and up the hill, and you take the first left and you're down Romance Avenue.
It will all be all right in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Still struggling.
Can you write that down so it can put it as a Facebook status tonight? Is this like your own saying in your home? If it's not okay, you're up and down and you're all around the world. What is it?
How did you say it's a message in tongues?
How many Erin and Angie does it take to figure out one phrase?
It makes sense in our heads. That's the thing. Communication.
No, I love it.
But just basically the premise of that, actually, it's not the end, and like there is still. I know we can always say like hindsight's 20/20, but literally hindsight is 20/20. Like it's all going to work itself out in the end, and sometimes it might be a case of thinking, well, if this isn't what God has planned for me, then he's going to have something at least better.
And you know what? It's okay to be hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not a sin to feel hurt. I think sometimes one of the challenges in our spirit-filled expression of faith is we just want to move. People say, we move on quick, come on, get over it, just get over it. But there are times when actually you can be really hurt, especially if you've invested in a a relationship. And
Yeah, it's true.
you said, I really, that was a big deal for me to make myself vulnerable there. And I'm feeling really hurt. And I think it's okay. I think it's, I think, give yourself a bit of space. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to, to be, and to feel a bit hurt about all that stuff. It's okay. It's not a sin. The challenge is, and this is where I don't want to be cliched, you can say, oh, just trust God, move. But the challenge is to trust God in the midst of all that.
Yeah.
So like faith is not this problem-free life. Faith is trusting God in your problems, isn't it?
Yeah.
In your challenges.
Yeah.
Faith is trusting faith is not getting a miracle every single day of your life. If only life were like that. Faith is trusting God when the thing that you were believing for didn't work out in the way that you wanted it to be. I've been talking to somebody recently, not part of the Junction Church, actually somebody who's really a very significant person in ministry, and they were just talking about, I'm really struggling with God. This is not obviously about relationships, this is about something that they believed God had said to them, and it really didn't happen. It's not that it didn't happen in the way they wanted it. It's just, it didn't happen. It just didn't happen at all. And this person's really, really, really struggling. And, analyzing their own faith. Was it God's will or was it just my desire for it to be God's will? And, those are reflections for afterwards as well. But I would say that if in the rawness of that moment, when there's your heart is hurting, just be kind to yourself.
Yeah,
Don't stop giving yourself a hard time. Stop trying to move on too quickly. There are times when and you keep coming to God's house and you keep coming and you lift your hands in worship because that's faith. That's faith. I always say if you're going to have your worst day of your life, have it in the house of God. I promise you this: the worst thing you can do when you're dealing with disappointment is spend too much time on your own. Yeah. And withdraw and become an introvert and sort of hide away from the world. That is the very thing that's not going to help, because actually you got to get out there. You got to get around people, and and that is what church is there for. Church is just a bunch of hurting people. Who are doing life together and who are experiencing God's grace together as well. The only difference between people who go to church and people who don't go to church is Jesus. It's the only difference. Christians, we have the same hurts, we have the same challenges. We're trying, we have some values. We're trying to live by the values of God's kingdom. We're trying our best to live, decent lives, lives that please God, and so on. But we can still get hurt. And I would say that if you've been hurt by a relationship that has gone, that hasn't gone according to plan, or a lot of people feel angry at God because it didn't go. Well, just be kind. It's okay. It's okay to feel a bit disappointed. It's even okay to feel a bit disappointed with God. Read the Psalms. The Psalms are like, like 1 minute he's, thank you, Lord, for your goodness, but why? And it's like, and that's okay. It's, as long as you just, God, I don't think God minds it if you're mad, as long as you keep talking to him.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think God, in fact, I think God's saying, at last, some honesty from you, instead of these bland, boring prayers. Thank you for the birds so sweet. Thank you for the food we ate. Yeah. God who never slumbers and sleeps is like having a holy sleep up in heaven. Where it was, I think our most effective prayers actually, in a weird way, come out of our hurts.
Yeah, that's good.
Come out of our disappointments. And so that would be my encouragement tonight. Any other thoughts on that?
No, spot on. I was just going to say, Rosie Hard in the comments has helped you guys out. She's given us the actual quote. It will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not.
It will be okay over at the end when it starts.
When you turn the corner
at the
to
beginning,
the shop.
From an A to Z book,
Y to Z. Yeah.
You know what? It's because of uni. When you have a quote, you have to really reword it.
You can't plagiarize.
Plagiarism.
So
okay.
I haven't been to uni for about 362 years, so I don't know what you're talking about. I think this has been a good little conversation tonight. And listen, what we wanted to do was just talk about some stuff. I mean, again, we could spend all night talking about each of those little, segments that we went through tonight. But we just wanted to acknowledge, talk about it and do it hopefully in a tongue-in-cheek way, and hopefully nobody's been offended or whatever. And if you have, well, you have to forgive us because you're Christians. But we just love you guys loads. And if you're believing for God to to bring into your relationship, keep praying, keep trusting.
Yeah.
Hold your nerve. Let's believe together. And honestly, the amount of time now I can say this as a veteran old pastor. I've prayed for so many people, and I've just been amazed. God can just answer, boom, quite quickly. Things can happen. So hold your nerve.
Yeah.
God will do what only God can do. Thanks for being with us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed being here because I haven't been here for a while. Because it's not the same. I prefer it like this, because when you do it on the Zoom, like the screen on the Zoom, I just feel like,
it's a lot more difficult to bounce off each other when you're not in person, isn't it?
Bounce?
Well, not physically.
Oh, sorry.
Like molecules.
Talking cross purposes here as well. Yeah, no, it is. It's not the same on the Zoom, is it? It's like, no, but when we're here, and that's why I'm so looking forward to when life gets back to some kind of normality again, because then we can all be together.
Boom.
And, I used to love it in the services whenever it was bunched up close together.
You put up a post on Instagram today.
Yeah, I did. I deliberately did that.
Yeah.
I deliberately did. You know what I do on Instagram? I have loads. I take about 10 hours to do an Instagram post.
I love it.
How long does it take you? How long does it take you to do an Instagram post?
It takes me a while as well.
It does, yeah. Got to get the words right.
Yeah, got to get the caption right.
Filter right.
Do I do emojis? Do I do hashtags? Do I just do a little quote?
Gosh.
Do I do nothing at all?
Wait, so you mean you sometimes take 2 hours and decide to do nothing?
It's like, nah.
You know what? We'll
She's
do
been
it
pondering
tomorrow.
the same Instagram post for the last 2 years.
You've just not seen it because it's just not made it.
Well, we love you guys loads, and we trust you're all good. And we're going to be back again next Friday. But don't forget, if you're part of the Junction Church and you're part of the Beacon, we're going to be doing this teaching series. Honestly, Joe, honestly. It's called The Blessed Life.
So good.
And so what's going to happen on Sunday is we're going to hear some teaching from Pastor Robert Morris, who's an amazing... And he is going to be teaching on biblical principles of generosity, how to position yourself for blessing in your life. Honestly, this is the most sound.
It's really
this is the most practical. This is the most, I think, revelatory teaching, I would say. Big word. Don't use that word in dating because it won't work, but you can use it in church. It's just brilliant, brilliant. And so it's going to be brilliant. We thought we'd do things a little bit different in church online on Sundays. So we're going to listen to Pastor Robert speak, and then we're going to have a chat about what he said afterwards. So that's going to be the interesting part. We'll listen to what he says, then chat about it, and think about what it means for us. And then we're also going to be having our own chats and live groups as well.
Love that.
so good.
So make sure you get along to that. So come with an open heart. Be ready for a bit of a challenge because some of it gets a bit challenging, and I love that because hey, I don't just want to hear nice things.
Yeah, I love how he takes it. Well, I saw the first one. He takes like a scripture that we've probably always interpreted in one way and just. Like, I'm excited for Sunday. Like, I'm just going to be looking in the chat. When he does it, everyone's be like, whoa.
Whoa.
It's going to be good. So listen, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Go and get another cup of cocoa, or what's going to happen now? Do you have like an evening routine? Is that the idea?
No, but I
In the
think we're gonna go
conservatory?
I think, we're going to treat
I've just
ourselves.
decided for us, we're going to get McDonald's.
You got to get McDonald's,
Yeah,
are
yeah.
you?
McDonald's.
Very good. What about you? What takeaway are you getting tonight?
I've got leftover KFC waiting for me.
Ooh.
Hey, they're doing this. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just not marketing, but they're doing this 10 pieces of chicken for £10 thing. It's like a nice bucket.
And what kind of is it? What is it? Is it?
It's like thighs and like chicken breasts, and they're proper big. So it's not like small wings or anything.
So how many more pieces of that chicken have you got to consume?
I have done 7 today, and I've got 3.
You'll be disappointed. You think if I've got 3, that you know.
I did kind of
not
leave
be
the
enough
house
to satisfy you.
Yeah, exactly. I should have done 5 and then I had 5 waiting,
True.
but
You would have
I went
thought
hard
that
the
I'll have
first time.
5 tomorrow night. Then when I do FN,
See?
I'll have the other 5.
Boom.
You see?
Well, I didn't
but
plan ahead.
you decided to have a ratio of 7 to 3.
Well,
with the
it's
chicken
more.
pieces.
I kind of felt if I have 7.
Then is it thigh? But what is it you're going to be having?
Well, I've got 2 drumsticks and one breast left. So chicken.
On that bombshell, we hope you've enjoyed this evening. We've enjoyed being here. I hope we've given you a laugh, if nothing else. We're just trying to keep it real, and we love you guys. See ya Sunday. 11 a.m. live. It's going to be amazing.
Yes.
And Joe's going to go and have his chicken now, and I'm going to go and have my cocoa now, and they're going to go and have their
McDonald's
now. Whatever you do, enjoy it. Speak soon.